volcanism in Southeastern Mare Serenitatis on the moon. Brent?
Thank you, everyone. So this project stems from work that I'm doing with the Survey Finesse team. This is a prequel to the field work that we are about to do in 2 weeks. So we fly out on Friday, July 31st, and we'll be in Idaho for 2 weeks. The motivation for this, these are not places that are newly discovered. They've been previously researched fairly heavily in the past. But I've been looking at, last year at League, I talked about a little feature called ISIS, which when you're having a telecon on a government line and the NSA is 5 miles down the road, that is a very unfortunate name of a feature to study, but I love it anyways. And it's all its little friends lined up along this nice little rift here. Potential dome, a possible vent, and another cone-like feature called Osiris. As you can see, heavily studied since the days of when I was born. You're welcome. Doesn't mean you're old; it just means you're wise. It's like okay, and so there's that whole area on the moon that we're going to talk about, and another area that's also been studied or looked at out in craters of the moon, right next to King's Bowl, is this little section called the Inferno Chasm Rift Zone. Inferno Chasm is right here. It's a little reel-like feature that is very similar looking to ISIS, a little channel on the moon. You have a dome-like feature. There's a pond-like feature. There's a more linear vent, and there's a much wider vent structure called Wild Horse Corral that are very similar looking in their alignment and morphology to the features in Southeastern Serenitatis. So our goal for this project is to now kind of combine those two areas in a little bit more detail now that we have all this great data from the NAC differential, our digital terrain models, and some of the field work that we'll be doing. So do the lunar volcanic features around Osiris and Isis and Osiris represent a plain style volcanism on the moon, and how can we use the features in Idaho to inform our understanding of these of their formation? So go into a little bit about plain style volcanism, and also how it applies to the moon, and then talk about the Inferno Chasm Rift Zone and how they compare to the features on the moon. So just for plain style volcanism, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of an intermediary between the larger shield volcanoes that you might see in Hawaii and some of the monogenic cinder cones that you see maybe in San Francisco Volcanic Field. It is characterized by these low shields, which are point source eruptions, usually along a rift zone of some sort. They align up, that they can feed lava tubes, they can have steeper peaks, but they kind of have the best of both worlds of forming large structures, but they also overlap a lot, so you never always see the full feature there. They've been looked at, written about in Oriental. I'll zoom into this area here called Lacus Ferris. And down in the corner here is a blow up. This little feature was a linear rift with some material that has fused out, apparently. Maybe another little dome-like feature here. Here's our NAC differential terrain model. This has been featured in several publications from the past to the recent as one example of potential plain style volcanism on the moon. Now I'm going to try to apply this idea to out here to southeastern Mare Serenitatis, right near the Apollo 17 landing site. Zooming in, here again is the features of Osiris and Isis. There's also another larger feature up to the north, potential pond area. Here it is on a post-Apollo 17 geologic map from the USGS special paper that has aligned those, marked those features out on the map, and again the NAC differential, our digital terrain model. Sorry, I have differential GPS stuck in my head. Here is a blow-up of a NAC image. Again, you have Osiris, which is a cone, has a little more of a horseshoe-shaped or breach to the southeast. Another unnamed cone here. This is a very, I don't know if it's a dome or if it's just a weird effusive feature that has come out along the rift. Has characteristics of a flow lobe, but also it's very flat and flat-topped, or high and flat-topped. And then you have the rill itself. So how do these features form? And then I'll compare them to show you their analogs in Kings Bowl here. Again, these are the features from Wild House Corral, Event, Perch Pond, Inferno Chasm is the channel, and Grandview Crater is the dome. So here is the here is Isis. Again, it is a reel-like channel. Has a cone over here. I'll show you the topographic profiles in just a little minute. It's a very small scale feature. The base of it is just over about a kilometer and a half at the base in diameter, and the channel itself is just under 3 kilometers in length. Here are the topographic profiles using the NAC differential terrain model. The post spacing is 5 meters for the terrain model, but you can see a very symmetrical cone, maybe slightly a little higher to the northeast, and then a very gentle slope down the channel there. So changes in elevation from 2770 to 2820, so maybe about 50 meters in elevation change from the vent to the base of the channel. This is the feature that we're started comparing it to last year. Again, this is Inferno Chasm. You have the vent system here and a channel that drains to the west. There are some smaller little rivulets or overflow channels. This is looking into the vent system from where this arrow is pointing. Here is a look inside the vent. In the lower left corner, you have a LiDAR scan, and you'll notice this little dome here that's formed at the base. And then here's a picture of that area. The white arrow marks the same location, and there's some people circled there for scale. We took some differential GPS profiles, and here are the results. The vent itself is about 200 meters wide, about 20 to 15 meters deep, depending on what side you're on. The little rivulet off to the side is about 30 meters wide, but only 5 meters deep. Going down the channel, it stays about 100 meters wide. Again, and stays about a similar depth to the vent. The lower corner, the D to D prime profile goes from the vent all the way to the tip of the channel. It's a very low slope, less than a degree, and changes in 10 meters of elevation over about 1.7 kilometers distance. Now I'm going to compare these, look at some of the other features. Here's Osiris with the DTM model and the NAC profile. Our NAC visible image. Here are the our digital terrain models profiles. Again, very symmetric going from A to A prime, asymmetric going from B to B prime. So a potential breach off to the southeast there. There wasn't a really good feature along Inferno Chasm Rift to compare it to, so I found another little cone up in Craters of the Moon. Again, a very similar horseshoe-shaped cone. Another little cone, potentially off just to the north, off to its northern flank. This is that other, I still don't know what to call it. I'm going to call it a dome for now. Here's B to B prime profile. Shows you how flat topped it is, going from northwest to southeast. But going from A to A prime off this one little section of it, it's very asymmetric profile. Those lines are about 5 meters in difference. So it's a very steep sided off to the northeast. Yeah. Okay, got it. Here's the potential analog for this is this Grandview Crater. It's a dome that I plan to get out to in August. That we'll look at. It's very steep sided on either side. Has a central crater. This one we don't see anything that maybe this could resemble a central vent area, but still not exactly sure. Going to the north of Isis is this low depression here. Has a rim feature that sticks out in the NAC DTM. As you can see, it's a flat floor from A to A prime going across it, fairly steep. So you got this little lip that comes out, and the analog for this is either Wild Horse Canyon, something like this, which is fairly deep and has these benches on it, or you can have something more off to the northeast of this location that I haven't shown yet, but this other little feature here which has a very subtle lip or rim to this depression around here. So again, more features to begin to look at. The Last feature is this feature to the farthest to the north, this potential pond. You have a rim here with a very flat floor. Here's the profiles, A to A prime, as you can see, very steep walls to the side, and then you can look at the slope of the floor there. If you zoom out, here's the full view of it. Off to the north is this other little spot. I don't know if that would be a source area or another volcanic feature, but I don't know if this is something that might have fed what we're seeing here, or is this a buried previous structure that's been buried. There's this Papadakis perched pond. It has a little vent structure that does feed this ponded area. That could be an analog to what we're looking at here. So again, comparing Earth to Mars, or Earth to the Moon, why we're interested in this is the stratigraphy and the importance of it. As you can see, what the Apollo 15 astronauts were able to image, looking at the wall of the Hadley Rill. We want to look at and start detailing the stratigraphy of these features a little bit more. As Laszlo Kessler pointed out in this image, he has interpreted these horizontal vesicles to as a result of inflation of some of the lava flows that were exposed along Hadley Rill, and we're looking at some of the textures here at the wall of Inferno Chasm, which are a little bit more irregular and could probably more likely due to the welded and spatter and overflows of that region. So the point is, if we do get a chance to get back up here, at some point, either with rovers or with humans, what can we expect to see in the layering of these features to help us interpret how they were formed, some other potential analogs, and I'll leave you with my conclusion slide and move on from there.
All right, so we have 2 minutes for questions or discussion. Again, please go to the central microphone if you have a thought. Not seeing anybody rush up. Can I ask a question? I know the answer to this. No, you don't. But would you prefer to study these analog sites that look so interesting, or would you prefer to study these features with direct field studies on the lunar surface?
Okay, so the answer to that is definitely with direct field studies on the lunar surface. I think it goes with anything with science and exploration is you'll learn more once you're there, and then you can refine and revise. But we do need to spread our footprint across the lunar surface, whether it's footprints or rover tracks, and that will help us define, again, where we want to go next. So the more we do, the more we can enable going to the moon and elsewhere.
There is one more. Okay, we're going to have to be able to take one of those questions, so you can. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Erica Jowan, Brown University. So the domes that you were looking at look fairly similar morphologically to the Marias Hills domes. If you could send a rover or a manned mission or whatever to one of the sites, would you rather go to the site you described or somewhere like the Marias Hills where you'd have a much higher concentration of volcanic domes and other volcanic features?
I would take either, first of all. Marias Hills is very diverse. There's some pits there, there's the rills, and there's a diverse set of cones there. So I'd be just as happy with the location there. The one thing I do like about these is they're a little bit smaller than the Marias Hills. They're a little bit more feasible to study. So I'm also trying to think of what's realistic to study with a small rover or in the time frame that a human can run around up there, whether they have a rover or not, and be able to sample these features.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have the illustrious